I'm Ashton from EventChain for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Tushar Aggarwal, the CEO and co-founder of Persistence. Tushar, welcome back to the show. Pleasure to see you again, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ashton. Thank you again for having me on the show.
Yeah, I know you and your team have been up to a lot since we last spoke, and some pretty exciting developments in not just the commodity space, but staking as a service, DeFi, and NFTs. Your team is all over. I would love for you to kick it off with an update and an overview and the focus on Persistence, and then we can dive into the details.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for some of the listeners who've been here since, 2018 and 2019, I had done an episode with Ashton when I was at Lunex, which is a crypto fund, baby fund of Golden Gate Ventures, a traditional venture capital fund. And then since, I transitioned into founding my own project and being on the operator side as opposed to being a capital allocator. And at Persistence, we're doing a bunch of things and we've had an interesting journey. So if I kind of go maybe chronologically and break it down by products, as Ashton mentioned. So first came Comdex, which is a decentralized commodity trading platform, more geared towards institutional traders. And in the process of building Comdex, we realized that there were a lot of infrastructural things that were missing, which is how Persistence came about, where Persistence is acting more as the infrastructural layer to build multiple things within the DeFi space. So Persistence came out of stealth on the 1st of Jan 2020, and as some of the audience may remember that in March 2020, essentially we had a huge crash, and basically for about 6 months we found it extremely difficult to fundraise. And so during that time, we started Audit.one, which is our staking as a service solution, which allowed us to create cash flows to be able to cover our expenses and pay salaries. And so that was, how Audit was born. And, now it has grown to being one of the largest staking as a service solution providers in Southeast Asia and South Asia, with more than 300 million assets under delegation. Post that, after the launch of the compound token in June 2020, we had kind of the, DeFi summer 1.0. And, during that time, essentially, we went out aggressively and raised capital so that, we didn't have to rely on just our staking income, and you could expand aggressively, both in terms of team, in terms of marketing and things like that. So that was in Q3 2020. In Q4 2020, we did a stake drop campaign where stakers of certain coins such as Luna, Atom, Kava, Matic would receive a very targeted airdrop of the Persistence coin. And so within a 3-month period, we had more than $1 billion worth of staked coins that were participating in this stake drop campaign. So that kind of showed us the humongous amount of demand that there is in terms of generating additional yields from already staked assets. And that's how pStake came about, which is a liquid staking product where we're allowing holders of staked coins to generate additional yields from their currently staked coins. So that's been sort of, a very circuitous journey of having created multiple products. We're a team of 32 people now across the board on the tech and business side. Across, back-end developers, front-end developers, blockchain developers, DevOps folks, designers, researchers, and then on the business side in terms of community, BD, growth, marketing, compliance, operations, finance. So I have a full-fledged team. We want to keep spinning out multiple products. On the business side, we all focus, it's more horizontal in nature in the sense that most people focus on multiple products in parallel. Whereas on the technical side, it's more vertical, where each product has like a product owner and product manager, and they take ownership for that product. So that's how we're kind of high level structured. And, from our perspective, we'll aggressively keep producing, more and more products and keep trying to, penetrate deeper into the crypto world to grow our communities, keep growing our, technical and business prowess.
Wonderful, Tushar. That's a great intro, and it's quite interesting to see the variety of different products and how they came about that your team is working on, having that staking as a service, moving into pStake, which looks like it's revolutionary right now. Besides DeFi, people are learning to stake their Bitcoin, Ethereum, other major digital assets in centralized or decentralized platforms, and especially with all these other proof of stake blockchains coming out, more and more percentage of these coins are being locked in. And from what I understand, there is a competitive advantage with pStake because normally when those coins are locked in, they aren't always usable for other purposes. It's either you lock it in and get the reward, or you don't lock it and you can use them, but you don't get that reward. And you're finding a way around that, looking at the frictions in staking, and probably part of the reason why some people aren't staking is because their coins are locked up. Can you talk about that unique part of pStake, where you saw the frictions in staking and how you're looking at getting more people to do staking through pStake's platform?
Yeah, so I think if we talk about pStake in particular, I think, and taking a step back as well, so I wasn't early enough in the industry to do Bitcoin mining at scale or to do Ethereum mining at scale, which are the two big proof of work blockchains. So pStake is focused more on the proof of stake blockchains exclusively. Mm-hmm. I was early, however, enough in the industry to be extremely early to be a validator. And so multiple team members from Persistence have been involved on the proof of stake side. The first few delegated proof of stake chains in production were Cosmos and Tezos. And so, over the last 3 years or so, since we've had delegated proof of stake chains in production, we've been involved in the launch of at least 5 networks. Like I've already mentioned, we have good experience in terms of running validator nodes ourselves and being a validator ourselves. And, I talked about the stake drop campaign, which kind of was a motivating factor for us to start doing pStake. But like you rightly mentioned, a lot of folks have essentially a trade-off between staking and liquidity. So either you stake and earn staking rewards, or obviously, if you have staked, a lot of proof of stake blockchains have a 21-day or a 28-day unbonding period, where even if you unstake, you don't get your coins back immediately. You have to wait for a 21-day period, which causes illiquidity and causes a lot of people to not stake, which is the problem that we're trying to address. That, what we want people to do is that we want people to stake and earn staking rewards, but still have the flexibility to be liquid. And if they want to get out of their position, in case the markets are falling and someone wants to sell off, then the platform enables the holders of a representative staked coin to sell that essentially representative coin to someone else. And whoever you sell this representative coin to gets access to the underlying staked coin as well. So essentially, you're transferring ownership of a staked coin without unstaking it.
Very interesting. And you did mention there Cosmos and Tezos on the proof of stake blockchains that we're working on. Are those the primary assets, or are there a variety of proof of stake assets that you have and that you're also looking to include as you grow the platform?
Yeah, so historically we've had the strongest community within the Cosmos ecosystem. Cosmos itself has multiple proof of stake coins, including Cosmos, Atom, Terra Luna, Injective Protocol, Crypto.com, CRO coin is a Tendermint based coin, Kava, Iris. So these are all Akash network. These are all coins that are proof of stake coins that will be part of the pStake platform. Outside of the Cosmos ecosystem, if we look at big ecosystems, you have the Polkadot ecosystem and you have Solana. Obviously, the largest ecosystem today is ETH2, with the transition of Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. So that is, of course, the largest addressable market as far as liquid staking is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, that's great to know. And you mentioned earlier with these delegated proof of stake platforms, you're actually delegating the assets to validators like yourselves, and I believe you have a lot of partners that you're working with as well, to make it easier for people to stake and to help on their behalf. Can you elaborate on that a little bit in terms of when users go and start staking, they're actually sharing the rewards with the validator, and the validator is actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting for them, or how exactly does that work with the validators?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the equivalent of validators in the proof of work ecosystem are the miners. So, in proof of stake, instead of calling them miners, we just call them validators. But essentially, validators do exactly what miners do, which is validate transactions, and hence the name validators. And this is the biggest difference that people don't get in terms of staking within DeFi and staking POS coins. So staking within DeFi is just staking a governance token so that you have a say in what the platform does or certain decision-making parameters that protocol wants to take or the community wants to take. Whereas in proof of stake, when you're staking a coin, as the name goes, proof of stake, when you stake a coin, you're actually doing what the miners do. Mm-hmm. And that's where the risk comes from as well, that if the validator that you have delegated your asset to becomes malicious or does not have good infrastructure and has certain downtime, then the stake that you have put can actually get slashed as well, or that stake can get reduced. So I think these are risks that a lot of folks don't understand. But I think with the transition from ETH to ETH 2.0, I think these risks and just staking in general, staking from a perspective of taking part in consensus of the chain is going to become more clear, to the users and to the community members, which is not very widely understood at the moment. Like I said, proof of stake in production has been only active for less than 3 years, or at least delegated proof of stake or proof of stake as we know it. And essentially every new chain that is being launched is now some form of a delegated proof of stake chain. So whether that is, Solana or Near, Avalanche, obviously Cosmos, Tezos, Polkadot, and they have followed one form or one variation or the other of how both Cosmos and Tezos went to market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great explanation. Thank you for elaborating on that. And part of in the pStake platform, you mentioned that you're actually, because the assets are locked in, and then you're creating a sort of wrapped token through persistence where you're able to trade it and move that to somebody else, and then they have ownership of the underlying stake tokens. Does that involve the persistence and the XPRT token? And if so, can you elaborate on that and how the persistence token works within the platform, and if it has any other use cases outside of the pStake as well?
Yeah, so the XPRT token essentially is a staking token as well at the POS level. So persistence itself is a tenement-based chain. Our journey, has been very similar to that of Terra, and some of the audience members may be familiar with the Terra ecosystem. So Terra is a tenement-based chain. They have Chai as their non-crypto user-facing application, which is focused on e-commerce payments. And then they have Anchor protocol, Mirror protocol, which are, essentially their, crypto-native user-facing applications. So our journey has been similar, where we have persistence as a tenement-based chain. We have Comdex as a non-crypto user-facing application, because Comdex is focused on institutional commodity traders. And then we have pStake and a couple of other applications which are more focused towards crypto-native folks. So as far as XPRT is concerned, XPRT is the staking token or the consensus token that binds together the entire persistence ecosystem. And fees from all of these different applications, whether that is Comdex or pStake, is shared with the XPRT stakers. So XPRT has inflation built in, and so there are staking rewards that are given to the XPRT stakers. So it's starting off with 35% for the first 2 years, and then halves every 2 years. So 2023 onwards, it's going to be 17.5%. 2025 onwards is going to be 8.25%, and so on. And so to account for that decrease in staking rewards, what we want to do is create substantial transaction fees increase so that the effective APY of staking XPRT remains the same for the holders and stakers of XPRT.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great to know, and it's nice to see that you can also use it as a staking asset itself as well. And we did talk about those assets that you're working on in the proof of stake ecosystem. Can you talk about just the major milestones and the roadmap for pStake for the rest of 2021 and in the coming months?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you only asked for 2021 because, a lot of people ask us, like, what are your plans of the next 5 years? And, there's just so much uncertainty in crypto that it's so difficult to answer that question. So we typically try to internally plan for the next kind of 3 to 6 months as well. So we're recording this on the 22nd of June. We recently, last 7 days ago, on the 15th of June, launched what we call a pre-alpha bug bounty launch for pStake. And so essentially what we want users to do is kind of play around with the product and find all the bugs, both from a code perspective as well as from a UI perspective. What we're going to do is incorporate all of those changes and do like a staking competition of sorts from beginning of July onwards. And then between 10th to 15th July is when we're looking to launch, pStake as like a beta product where actual financial assets will be at risk. But what we want to do is we want to do the launch in a capped manner. So the launch starts with, maybe a cap of like, say, 10,000 atoms or so. By the way, we're going to market with atoms as the first currency. We're going to be expanding the coverage over a period of time. So mid-July is when we launch it with atoms. Over basically, Q3, what we want to do is expand the coverage of the assets that we cover. So, basically try to go after multiple assets. And then over a period of time, what we'll also be trying to do is add features. So we're launching with very basic features, but over a period of time, we'll be adding the feature set. In parallel, we're getting security audits done so that, users feel secure in terms of, supplying huge amounts of liquidity, to the product. And we can get more institutional and bigger holders of atoms and other POS coins to be using the pStake platform as well. So, definitely trying to put a huge amount of focus on cybersecurity. And so essentially, I don't know if that makes sense, but, essentially that's kind of what our roadmap looks like. Launch the product by mid-July or so, focus on expanding the coverage of the assets, focus on adding features. I think those are, and also getting these assets that we're issuing or the representative coins that we're issuing or the wrapped coins, as you mentioned, making sure that those assets get accepted into other DeFi products as collateral to facilitate borrowing, lending, or for those assets to be supplied as liquidity on decentralized exchanges and things like that. So I think those are the, sort of three big things that we'll be shooting for in 2021.
Yeah, that sounds like a great roadmap, Tushar, and to get the community involved at an early stage, I think is very important to bring out those bug bounties and help people get ready for the beta and the launch in mid-July, which I am excited to try out when that launch does happen. For the viewers that are looking to get involved with these bounties right away and to get ready to hear more news on exactly when the platform's going live, what is the best way for them to learn more about persistence and get into the community?
Yeah, so, the usual platforms, Twitter, Telegram. So the Persistence Twitter, we have a separate Twitter for pStake as well. So Persistence Twitter handle is @persistence1. pStake Twitter handle is @pStake Finance. And then obviously, we have the Persistence website itself and the pStake website. So pStake.finance is the pStake website. If you go to alpha.pStake.finance, that's where, the bug bounty product is out there. So depending on when this episode goes live, users can maybe test out the alpha or test out the actual product once it's launched.
Sounds great, Tushar. I will leave all those links in the description box below as well. All the best with the upcoming launch of the pStake platform and Persistence as a whole. And let's follow up in the near future.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashton, for having me on the show.